Hey boys and girls, so today we're going to be going over Unit 5, Lesson 2, which is parallel lines and triangles. Before we get started, make sure that your name is at the top of your lesson, and once you have that written down, we can jump right in. So as I look at the do now, it says given a pair of line segments AB and CD. Well, here's my line segments AB and CD. A third line segment EF is going to intersect both of those line segments. So here's my third line segment EF. I can see that it's intersecting, it's hitting AB and CD. So based on this diagram, the first part of this question says, alternate interior angles are what in measure? And we know that alternate interior angles are equal or they are congruent in measure. And now it's asking me to name both pairs of alternate interior angles. Well, if you remember from Unit 1 long ago, that's when we first learned about these types of angles, you highlight out the letter Z to find them, all right? So if I look here, I can see that these lines are parallel because they're highlighted out with that arrow symbol, okay? The fact that line segment AB and line segment CD are parallel tells me that I'm allowed to highlight out the letter Z to find alternate interior angles. If these lines were not parallel, I wouldn't be able to do that, all right? So just like always, I'm going to start on my parallel line. I'm gonna make my way down, so I'm ending on a parallel line, okay? That would be a backwards looking Z. So I'm gonna highlight yellow to yellow and again yellow to yellow. So I can see that angle D and angle E are congruent. Those are alternate interior angles. I can also make a regular looking Z. So again, I'm going to start on my parallel line. I'm gonna make my way down, so I'm ending on my parallel line. All right, again, I'm gonna highlight blue to blue and blue to blue. So my second pair of alternate interior angles would be angle C and angle F, blue to blue. And I know those would be equal as well. The word interior, let me highlight that, means inside. So I should be thinking of what angles are inside those parallel lines. Well, here's line segment AB, and here's line segment CD. And if you look, you can see that it's just those four angles that are interior, that are inside those parallel lines. So I know that my answer choices on the side have to be correct in some way because those are the only letters that I should have been using in my answer, C, D, E, and F. All right, let's move on to the guided practice down below. So in this lesson, we're going to just practice everything we've learned about triangles having 180 degrees. We know that angles on a line add up to 180 degrees as well. We know that parallel lines have the arrow symbol and they form alternate interior angles. Those are congruent in measure. We have vertical angles, they're across from each other. So there's a ton of different vocabulary words that we've learned when it comes to angle measures in a diagram. So today, we're just gonna practice all that information on each diagram that we're going to see. So if I read the directions here, it says find the missing angles labeled with variables within the given diagrams. So I can see here I have to find angle A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. All right. There are so many different ways that you can start these questions. I'm just gonna start off by seeing again, because I showed it before, those arrows. Those arrows up top and down below are telling me that these two line segments are parallel. So just like in the do now, we can highlight out the letter Z to find those alternate interior angles that parallel lines form. So I'm gonna start off with blue this time. I'm gonna make a regular looking Z. So I start on my parallel line, I make my way down, so I'm ending on a parallel line. So I know that whatever angle C is, it's gonna equal whatever angle B is. And that's one Z, it's a regular looking Z. I can also go backwards. Again, this is my parallel line, it's the whole line. So I'm gonna start on my parallel line, I'm gonna make my way down, so I'm ending on my parallel line. So again, I have yellow and yellow, So I know that angle A should equal 50 degrees because those angles are alternate interior angles. So if angle A is 50, I'm sorry, if this angle up top is 50, then angle A is 50 degrees as well. All right, so we got one angle out of the way. Now I'm just going to keep working here. I'm noticing that angle B and this angle 113 degrees are adjacent. They're right next to each other on this straight line. So if I were to highlight that out and make a half circle here, I know that together, those two angles, because they're being cut in one spot right here, these two angles should add up to 180 degrees. So on the side, I'm just going to show that work. 180 minus 113 degrees. And if you grabbed your calculator and typed it in, you would see that the answer is 67 degrees. Okay, just for time, I'm not going to have a lot of time to keep pulling out the calculator and showing you guys how to punch those numbers in. At this point, I know you guys are really savvy with that. So again, you would just type that in your calculator, you would get 67 degrees. So I know that angle B is 67 degrees. So if angle B is 67 degrees, that means angle C has to be 67 degrees, because they both had that blue vertex that we highlighted out because they're alternate interior angles. And that means that they're equal. All right. So these two angles, alternate interior angles, I'm going to write that out here. And we found those by highlighting out the letter Z. And 67, I know that these angles were adjacent on a straight line. So I'm going to write that out as well. Adjacent angles on a line. I know they equal 180 degrees. So that's how I got these answers as well. Okay. Again, it's just how you're seeing the diagram, boys and girls. So I feel like I used my Z on the right, my Z on the left. I did a half circle right here for angle B. So now I'm seeing that angle G is the only angle that's left for me to find in the bottom half of the diagram here. And I'm noticing that angle G is a vertical angle with B. So vertical angles are equal, they're congruent. So if this is 67, I know that G is 67 degrees as well. And again, I'm getting this answer because those are vertical angles. They're right across from each other, so that means that they are equal in measure. Let me scoot this up just a smidge. All right, so now I'm gonna look at the top half. I have D, E, and F left over. Once I find all three, I should be done with this question. So again, just because I talked about vertical angles a second ago, I'm gonna see if I have any vertical angles up top as well. And I do. Angle F and angle 50 are right across from each other. So again, I know that those are vertical angles. Vertical angles are equal. So I know that if this is 50, I know that angle F is also going to be 50 degrees. And again, how am I getting that this is 50 degrees? Because of vertical angles. And if you're having trouble finding vertical angles, you can always highlight them out. So I'm going to use a different color here. These are the line segments that are forming that degree measure for 50, okay? I'm just going to extend my pink segment up, and I'm just going to extend my pink segment out to the left. So I can see that this is where my vertical angles should be formed, right? Pink to pink, pink to pink. So I know that those are definitely vertical. I could have done the same thing down below. So again, if you're having trouble identifying vertical angles, that's a trick that you can use. So now all I have left is angle D and angle E. Again, there's multiple different ways that I can get these answers. I'm gonna get angle E by using adjacent angles on a line like I did below. I can see that angle E is right next to 50. They're adjacent, they're on a line, so I'm gonna highlight out a half circle here. Here I go. I can see my half circle is being cut right here. So I know that 50 and E together make 180 degrees. So on the side, I'm gonna just show that work. 180 minus 50 is 130 degrees. So I know that angle E is 130 degrees. And again, I'm getting this answer because I know that adjacent angles on a line equal 180 degrees. All right, and then last but not least, I have angle D. So again, I think I'm going to use the adjacent angles on a line. Let me grab a different color here. So I can see that angle D is adjacent, or it's right next to angle C and angle 50. So I know that all three angles here together are going to add up to 180 degrees. So I can see this chunk, this one section of the line, is being cut right here and right here. So in my half circle, I should have 1, 2, 3 angles. I know the left is 67 and the right is 50. So when I add 67, let me grab my calculator quickly, 67 and 50 together, I get 117. So I'm now going to just take 180 degrees for my entire line and subtract out 117 degrees, because those are the two angles that I already have. And when I subtract away, I'm left with 63 degrees, so I know that angle D is 63 degrees. All right, and again, I'm getting this because of the same reason up top, adjacent angles on a line equal 180 degrees, okay? Just because this was the first question, I wanted to write out how I'm getting all of my answers, so that way when you're later on working on some of these questions on your own, you'll know how you can get those answers by yourself as well. So we used vertical angles, they're across and they're equal. Adjacent angles on a line, they're next to each other on a line and they add up to 180. Alternate interior angles, I need parallel lines, they're formed by the Z. Okay, and that's really all the angles that I used on this example up here. All right, let's flip and look at the next page here. Let me get myself set up. All right, so I'm gonna go over 2 more with you, and then I'm gonna have you finish this page on your own, and then you can check your answers at the end. I'm gonna just pick up the pace here a little bit, so I'm not gonna write out how I'm getting every single answer, but I will be explaining it on camera. Okay. So as I look at this first diagram, let me show the directions. It says find the missing angles labeled with variables given that there's parallel lines. So it's nice that in the directions they told me that I do have parallel lines, but really they didn't even have to tell me that, because when I look at the diagram, I'm seeing these arrows, and that arrow symbol tells me that those lines are parallel already. All right, so again, when I see parallel lines, I think of a Z. And I can always, for the most part, make 2 Z's. So I'm gonna make a Z that looks like a regular looking Z. So I'm gonna start on my parallel line. I'm gonna make my way down, so I end on my parallel line. Blue to blue, blue to blue. And then I'm gonna make a backwards looking Z. So again, I start on my parallel line. I make my way down, so I'm ending on my parallel line. C to C, well, yellow to yellow, and then again, yellow to yellow. Be very careful. I don't know if you guys are already noticing that whatever angle C is, that number should equal B and D added together. All right, so just be very careful of that. That was tricky. And now I'm gonna just jump in and see where this takes me. All right, so I know that if this angle up top is 64, the angle down below has to be 64 as well. Those are alternate interior angles. Let me just write that up top here. Parallel lines, they form those alternate interior angles. And those are found by highlighting out that letter Z. Okay, so that's one angle out of the way. I only have 3 left. All right, we're making some progress. I'm gonna find angle D next, because aside from the parallel lines, I'm also noticing that there's a triangle in this diagram, and I know that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So again, a triangle equals 180 degrees. So if this angle up top is 51, this angle up top is 64, I know this angle down below would have to be 65. Because again, together, all 3 angles should add up to 180 degrees. So when I add 51 and 64 together, you get 115. So 180 minus 115 is 65, and that's how I'm getting 65 on the side. Make sure that you guys are always showing your work if you have to. And then last but not least, I'm gonna look for angle B here. I can see already my little half circle almost being formed with the yellow and the blue together. All three of these angles are right next to each other. They're adjacent and they're on this straight line. So again, the half circle is almost, or it's already there for me. So I'm not gonna form one because I'm looking at it. So when I add 65 and 64 together, let's do that now. 65 and 64 together, I get 129 degrees. And I know that again, all three angles should add up to 180 degrees. So I'm gonna grab a different color here, and I'm gonna just on the side here show that 180 minus 129. When I add these together and subtract it from the total, I get 51 degrees. All right, so now I know that angle B is 51. And I have one more angle left and I'm good to go. So if I look up top at angle C, it's the same thing. I can already tell that 64 and C are adjacent. They're right next to each other on this chunk of a line. And again, a half circle, it's already highlighted out for me. So this is one last step. I'm gonna just show the work up top. So 180 minus 64 degrees. When I take away what I have, I'm left with what I don't have, and that would have been 116 degrees. So angle C is 116 degrees. I am officially done with this question. One more way to check, just because I want to make sure we notice this and talk about it really quick. We said before that whatever B and D are, when you add them together, it should have been angle C. All right, because this whole angle was yellow. This whole angle was yellow. So I'm just going to double check that. 51 plus 65 is 116. And again, this angle is 116, so I know I'm good to go. All my math worked out well. Okay, let's try one more together, and then you guys are going to work on the last page by yourself. Let's look at this example on the side. Again, first step, I'm noticing those arrows right off the bat. That tells me those lines are parallel. First thing I want to do is highlight out the Z to find those alternate interior angles. Start on my parallel line, make my way down so I end on my parallel line, blue to blue, blue to blue, and I can make a backwards looking Z. Start on my parallel line, make my way down so I end on my parallel line. Yellow to yellow, yellow to yellow. So that was actually really helpful because if this angle is 37, I know that angle B is going to be 37. So that's one out of the way. And if this is 55, I know this angle down below has to be 55. And again, these are alternate interior angles. Okay, let me keep working here. So now all I have left is C and D. C actually looks pretty simple for me to find because it's adjacent. It's right next to 37, and we worked with adjacent angles twice in this example up top. So I'm just gonna do it again down below. So I'm just gonna highlight out my half circle here. It's these two angles that are right next to each other on this line. I can see it's being cut right here. So it's just angle C and just 37 that make this half circle. So again, I'm gonna just always show my work here, 180, right? Because that's how many degrees are in the line. When I subtract out 37, that's what I know. I'm left with what I don't know, and that would have been 143 degrees. So angle C is 143 degrees. All right. And then last but not least, there's actually two different ways for me to get angle D, okay? There could have been multiple ways for me to get D or B or, C up top, okay? But same thing down below, there's more than one way. I can either use the fact that D is adjacent with B and 55, so I could make a big half circle right here and get my answer to D using the angles on a line method. But what shape do you guys notice in this example? I'm seeing a triangle. How many degrees are in a triangle? 180. Well, if I already know two of the angles, can I easily get the third? And I absolutely can. So it's whatever method you want to use. I'm actually going to look at this as a triangle right now. So I'm going to say there's 180 degrees in a triangle. And when I subtract out the two angles that I know, let me grab my calculator. 37 plus 55, those two angles that I have add up to 92. So when I subtract out 92, that's what I know, I'm left with what I don't know, which is 88. So I know that angle D is 88 degrees. And again, I'm getting this answer because I know in a triangle, there's 180 degrees. All right. I want you guys to try the next three on your own. And then at this point, press pause. Once you're done, you can check back for those answers. All right, everybody, make sure that you guys are checking your answers. I know it looks like I have a lot going on here. You absolutely need to make sure that you are showing your work on each and every question, okay? I'm just writing out how I'm getting my answer, so that way when you're checking your answers, if you're confused as to if you made a mistake or how you got, you know, the number you did compared to how I got mine, this is how I'm getting my answers. So like 122, I used adjacent angles, right, on a line. I know that adds up to 180. That's why I did 180 minus 58, and I got 122, okay? So you have to make sure you're showing the work, but I'm just explaining here how I'm getting those answers, why I'm doing the math that I am. So that should have been the answers for this guy over here. All right, I'm just gonna push my paper up so you can see all the answers at the bottom as well. All right, feel free to pause the video at this point if you need to take an extra minute or two to check all of your answers with mine. I know this isn't gonna be really quick. It should probably take you a good minute or two, especially if you might have made a mistake somewhere. So again, feel free to pause the video at this time. All right, I'm gonna go now to the next page. All right. I also worked this out in advance because, again, it's identical to what we were just working on in the directions. They told you that the two lines are parallel. That's all we've been working on. I know these lines are parallel because, again, they're telling me in the directions. I didn't necessarily see the arrow there. So as soon as you know that they are parallel, you should absolutely be adding that arrow symbol on, okay? I wanted to wait and do that with you so we could talk about it. Same thing on the second diagram. Nowhere do you see the arrow symbol. So I can't assume those lines are parallel. They would have had to have told me, all right? So again, I'm just adding that symbol on to remind myself they are parallel. Okay, again, feel free to pause the video if you need to check these over, but I'm gonna continue on with the bottom question. I wanna make sure we have time to finish. All right, it says in the diagram below, line segment DB and line segment AF intersect at point C. And I can see that here, DB, right, and EF. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. AF intersect at point C. I can see that line segment AD, okay, and line segment FBE, okay, are drawn as well. And then it tells me that AC is exactly 6. So I'm just gonna double check. AC is 6, it's on my diagram, I'm good to go. DC is 4. DC is 4, it's on my diagram, I'm good to go. FC is 15, I can see it's on my diagram, so I'm good to go. Angle D is 65 degrees, angle D is 65, it's there for me. Angle DCA is 32 degrees. Angle DCA is 32 degrees. Are you guys seeing it here? Because I don't. So that's something I would have to add on to my diagram. Now it's there, I'm good to go. And the measure of angle CBE, where is C? We got CBE, right, it's 115. It's already there, so I'm good to go. This is how they try to get you on the regions. You see all this information, you see that there's numbers on the diagram already, and you might think that they're all there, and really one of them wasn't. So you gotta make sure you check off each one as you read. And then the question says, determine the measures of all the missing angles. So I like to always highlight the question, make sure that I've answered this completely, so I'm gonna reread that at the end. Determine the measures of all the missing angles. All right, so I can see I have an angle up top I need to find, 1, 2, 3 angles down below, all right, and then I'll be good to go. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna start with let's start with angle A, all right, because I can see that angle A is inside of a triangle. I know that a triangle has 180 degrees. So since I already know two of these angles, I can easily find the last one. So I'm going to show that a triangle has 180 degrees, okay? So that's why I'm going to take 180 and subtract out the two angles that I know. When I add 65 and 32 together, I get 97. So when I subtract out what I know, I'm left with what I don't know, which was 83 degrees. So I know angle A is 83 degrees. All right, now I'm going to jump down to the triangle at the bottom here. The only angle that they gave me that's even close to this triangle at the bottom is the 115, okay? Actually, I guess if I look back, there's really one more, but I'll come back to that. Okay, so I'm seeing 115 degrees at the bottom here, so I'm just going to highlight out. 115 is adjacent. It's right next to this missing angle that I have to find. Well, what do I know about adjacent angles, right? They're 180 degrees. So again, 180 is my total. I'm going to subtract out what I know, which is 115. And then I'm left with what I don't know, which is 65 degrees. And again, I'm using this because I know that alternate. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm writing the wrong thing. Let me just cross this out. Because adjacent angles on a line add up to 180 degrees. I have adjacent, they're right next to each other, adjacent angles on a line, and I know they add up to 180. All right, so when I subtract out what I know, I'm left with 65, and that is an angle that I did not know. All right, I'm also noticing that 32 is in the top triangle, but it's a vertical angle with this angle C and the second triangle down below. So I can mark that as well. I know that if the top angle is 32, I know that this bottom angle is 32 degrees as well, because again, these angles are vertical angles. They're right across from each other. So I know that they're equal in measure. And then last but not least, I have to find this missing angle F on the side here. But just like before, I knew 2 out of the 3 angles. And I know that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. That's how I found angle A. It's going to be the same thing for angle F. I know 2 out of the 3 angles. All together, there's 180 in a triangle. So that's what I'm going to use to get angle F on the side. So 180, because again, a triangle has 180 degrees. When I subtract out what I know, well, 32 and 65, when I add those together, I get 97. And when I subtract that from 180, I'm left with what I don't know, which is 83 degrees. So angle F is 83 degrees. Okay, these should have been the answers that you should have had for this question. And then this is just me going one step further. This is going to help you as we move through the rest of this unit and through the rest of the year. If this angle up top is 83 and this angle down below is 83, if I connect those segments here, do you notice how I'm highlighting out the letter Z? So what does that mean? These line segments have to be up top and down below. Well, I can now make the conclusion that these lines are also parallel. And it has nothing to do with the fact that they told me in the directions, because they didn't tell me, all right? It's only after I've done all the math that I've now noticed that these angles are equal, and again, they're alternate interior angles that are equal. Well, alternate interior angles are formed by parallel lines. So I know that these line segments would have had to have been parallel. It's the same thing if I go the opposite way. If I make a backward Z up top, right, and down below, and I connect, right, 65 and 65. Those are also alternate interior angles. If they're equal, I know that these lines had to have been parallel, and they are. All right, so again, it's only once I've done the math that I can make that conclusion. Okay. If you guys look at the very last page, this is your independent practice. Make sure you are showing all of your work on this page, okay? You can't get full credit without showing your work. It's the same thing on the Regents. You can't get full credit without showing all your math. All right, if you need to rewatch the video at all, please do that. If you need to go back and pause anywhere, please do that as well. And if you have any extra questions, you can always message us on Canvas. All right, have a great day.